So recently, ARC has done the investment in the Umoja, private biotech company focusing on developing in vivo cell therapies. So maybe before we start talking about Umoja, Andy and Britt, you can tell us a little more about your journey and how did you end up at Umoja and what are you actually doing there?
Sure, Nemo, maybe I can start and I'll hand things off to Britton. I'm a physician by training and I come over from the academic side of the scientific community. I worked for a period of time at University of Washington and Seattle Children's Hospital where I served as a pediatric immunologist and spent most of my career working on technology for repairing gene defects in children who had inherited diseases of resistance to infection. So these are things like the bubble boy is a classic one in I would say the kind of public genre of knowledge. And over the course of my career of working on that technology, we developed a lot of really interesting ways of manipulating genes and delivering genes. Became very familiar with that. And one of the things I began to realize, so I'm 61 years old now, and developed a lot of interesting technology. And over the course of my career, I realized you can discover technology in the academic realm, but it's very hard to develop drugs out of it. And as I approached, the end of my career about 5 years ago, I also realized that, there hadn't been transformative practice changing ways of treating patients that had really reached into my medical practice, and I wanted to be a part of developing something like that. So Umoja was in part talking to a lot of some of my friends and colleagues about, hey, what can we do at this stage of our careers that is absolutely transformative, and looking for a problem that I felt there was the technology available to address. And so the name Umoja, the company, actually is a Swahili term for bringing together. And it was essentially, let's bring together the right technologies, the right people, the right team to do something as transformative as we possibly can that's really practice changing. And that's effectively where our in vivo gene delivery technology, vivo, came from, and some of the other technologies that we're working on to try and treat cancer.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. I joined Umoja about a year ago and was just incredibly excited about the science and technology and the transformative science that the company's offering. And previously was at a company called Parse Biosciences, a single cell sequencing company. And before that, Archer DX and later Invitae, diagnostics companies where we focused on MRD and genetic testing. So, and prior to that, AstraZeneca and Genentech in corporate finance roles.
One of the most important ways or changes in how we think about treating cancer that's emerged over the last 20 years has been, instead of trying to poison cancer with what's drugs called chemotherapy, and the way chemotherapy works is you're poisoning a cancer a little bit quicker than you are poisoning the rest of your body. And that accounts for many of the side effects that we associate with chemotherapy. Things like hair loss and the fog and essentially terrible feelings that people have when they take chemotherapy. So that's the old paradigm. And the new paradigm has been to understand that actually a lot of the benefit that chemotherapy provides is because your immune system is in your body and actually already fighting the cancer. And chemotherapy is slowing the cancer down just enough for your immune system to come up, to catch up. And so people began working on new ways of essentially making your immune system more active to reawaken it to fight cancer. And one of the ways that has worked best is an approach called CAR T cell therapy. So a CAR for a cancer immunologist is a chimeric antigen receptor. And it's essentially a synthetic protein that we can put on a tumor fighting cell called a T cell and direct that T cell to directly kill tumor cells. So when you have cancer, when a patient has cancer, what has happened is normally your immune system is able to identify and kill off cancer cells. But over the course of your life, tumors can find ways to neutralize the immune system, to hide from it. And that's when cancer starts to grow out of control and starts to kill you. So CAR T cells are a way for scientists in the lab to teach your immune system to recognize anew tumor cells and eradicate them. And these have been worked on since the early 2000s. And there were some advances made that allowed them to really begin to work well around 2010 or so. And the way these therapies are generated initially was to take T cells, these tumor fighting cells, out of the body, actually modify them with viruses, to express this chimeric antigen receptor, or CAR, and then to put them back in the patient. And one of the more important advances to get this approach to work was you actually have to give a patient small amounts of chemotherapy to make room for these T cells to come in and do their job. And this process was initially pioneered in a variety of academic labs, and then eventually commercialized by 3 companies. So there's 3 or 4 of these types of therapies that are available now, but they all work in basically the same way. You have to isolate T cells, you have to ship them, you have to make a drug product, you have to actually characterize that product, you have to ship it back to the place where the patient is. You have to give that patient a bit of chemotherapy and infuse this drug product. So it's made patient by patient. And there's complex logistics involved in isolating the T cells, manufacturing them, and getting them back. So the drawback is, even though these work very well, it's actually very hard to deliver them to large numbers of patients because that process is very expensive. These are somewhere around $400,000 to $500,000 per patient to treat. It's about 100 days. If you get diagnosed with a type of cancer that can be treated with this technology, it's about 100 days between your diagnosis and when you'll actually get your drug product infused. And for the most part, we're only administering these treatments at major medical centers that have pretty sophisticated staff and the ability to manage some of the side effects. So right now, if you look across the United States, only about 1 in 5 patients that could get a therapy like this is actually able to access it. So that's sort of the history of CAR T cell therapy. And the commercial products right now require that long period of time. So the fact that these work so well, that's actually one of the things that when we were founding Umoja, we were looking at. We have this transformative drug product, and only 1 in 5 people can get it. There's no other drug product that has transformative effects where only 20% of the people can actually get it. So that was one of the problems we were trying to address. And in between approximately 2010 and the present, a lot of groups had said, well, maybe what we can do is take healthy T cells from healthy donors, make CAR T cells, and have those ready right away to give to patients. So that's a form of cell therapy called allogeneic cell therapy. And probably 15 or 20 different companies have tried all kinds of different approaches to try to make that work. And I think what's been disappointing, if you're a patient, is we haven't found a way to make that work as well as this bespoke way of making it from each patient from their own T cells. The effects of the treatment when you make it from a healthy donor are just much more limited. The durability of responses and the ability to get really deep anti-tumor responses, we just haven't been able to achieve it. And that's probably because when you have somebody else's T cell, when you give it to a patient, that patient's immune system sees that as foreign, almost like a tumor, and fights it, tries to fight it off. So in essence, somebody else's T cells, they are swimming upstream to try to kill the tumor because the immune system of the patient, which is trying to fight the tumor, just not very effectively, is also going to try to fight these incoming new cells. We haven't found a way to make the patient's immune system and these incoming donor-derived T cells work together effectively. So what we've developed at Umoja, we took a step back and we said, well, if that's the case, is there a way we can develop drug products that we can deliver directly to the patient and create the patient's CAR T cells directly in the patient and have them function? And so that's really the fundamental basis of what Umoja is doing. We're working on a platform we call vivo that allows that gene delivery to occur. And those are the way to think about it is the patient by patient way of manufacturing is the first generation of CAR T cells. Allogeneic CAR T cells are the second generation. And in vivo is really, in a way, the definitive way to do it. You've turned CAR T cell technology, this transformative mechanism of fighting tumors, into something that can be delivered right away as soon as the patient is diagnosed.
Just a thought, since we touched on it. It's sort of a provocative topic, maybe always, and maybe especially now as efficiencies are coming into the health service generally with the new administration. How do you think about when you are able to bring about such cost declines? How do you think about the go-to-market around those, and to what extent that is conferred ultimately to the end payer versus retaining margin in order to recoup, to do more R&D, to do even better therapies for patients in the future? How do you think about that balancing act? And also geographically, right? Because drug pricing in different geographies is so different.
For me, the most important thing is providing benefit to patient. So if we generate drugs and they have impactful and they're impactful, right? That patients receive them because of our drugs, they're able to avoid chemotherapy. They have long periods of durable remissions, maybe even significant fractions achieve cures. I think that is recognized as deriving value, and for the most part, you're able to price those appropriately and generate very strong margins and returns that allow you to continue to work on your product. But you've got to deliver that transformative impact. That's what allows you to continue to do that. Where I see a lot of pushback against pharmaceutical industries is when the drugs that are developed don't achieve, they achieve incremental impacts, yet the cost that then is asked for, the price that's asked for is very high. So we're, one, at least the way what we aspire to at Umoja is that transformative model. We're for those, and again, it comes back to only 1 in 5 patients is getting these drug products. If we can allow CAR T cell mechanism of action to be delivered to that other 80%, and we really transform their lives by allowing them to avoid some of the side effects of chemotherapy and things like that, we think we can build a fantastic business, deliver impact to patients, have reasonable pricing, and still be able to achieve the margins that allow us to continue to innovate. That is the American way. This idea that, and remember, all of those innovations will be patent protected, but eventually they'll come off patents, in which case they'll be available to every other pharmaceutical company who will now start to generate their own drug products and put even more price pressure on it. So I think this if you look at innovation across medicine, the vast majority of it has come from the really the American model, where you have the ability with a transformative, innovative drug to charge a lot, and that allows patients now to benefit. But one of the things people never think about is the drugs we're taking now were transformative drugs 40 years ago, and now they're incredibly inexpensive. And so the drugs that we're developing in 30 years will be inexpensive, and the next generation of really innovative drugs will be what we can only imagine. I think incredibly exciting and sophisticated ways that hopefully will allow people to extend not just not just surviving cancer, but maybe even extending their health spans and achieving other types of effects on patients' lives.
How big could this be in terms of, you mentioned for a second there, I think autoimmune diseases and other places, obviously, with immunosenescence and the degradation through time, unfortunately, in everyone's life of the immune system. It's such a huge part, a central part of aging, and the flip side being, could be a central part of longevity or treatments for age-related diseases in cancer, also infectious diseases, but also, there's pretty good evidence, even neurodegeneration, certainly autoimmunity, and probably more broadly, as we learn more and more about the interplay between the immune system and the rest of the body, it becomes quite clear that along with metabolism, it's one of the central axes of aging or of degeneration.
Certainly the near-term thrust is oncology, but to your point, there are some really exciting applications in autoimmunity as well. Your audience may not be aware. So over the last, I'd say 5 years, one of the most exciting approaches to treating autoimmunity that's come out has been the concept of an immune reset. And it kind of makes sense, which is, if we look at patients with the kinds of the autoimmune diseases, usually they're perfectly normal for some period of time, and then something happens and that causes an immunologic attack on healthy tissue. And actually, it is an incredibly broad range of disease. Certain types of diabetes are clearly autoimmune diseases. The obvious things like rheumatoid arthritis is an autoimmune disease. There's a disease called lupus, where you have attack on kidney and kind of broad attack on organ systems and vessels. So these are very frequent parts, and more frequent as we age. And it may be that immune senescence is a little part of that.
I actually, I just wanted to kind of close the circle here. I think it was great for us to kind of really go think about the future. ARC is all about the kind of future and where it will take us. But maybe, let's also kind of close it with the kind of near-term future for Umoja and just talk a little about the kind of current pipeline. And so, we know that what exists already in the market is the CAR Ts for the CD19, but obviously a lot of different issues there. And so what are some of the kind of pipelines highlights you want to share with our audience and kind of some of the possible catalysts in the near future?
Yeah, so near term for us is we have our two lead programs enrolling. So it's beginning to treat patients in the clinic. Our initial products are for blood-derived cancers, and we're looking to extend that into a form of cancer called myeloma, I would say initially. And then also, and you alluded to it at one point too, into I'd say a general way of treating solid tumors. So solid tumors are tumors that derive from other types of tissues than blood. So that could be liver cancers or colon cancer or breast cancer or lung cancer. They have unique properties versus the kinds of cancers that are blood derived and require again, to the point you were making, some more sophisticated type of programming. So we're working on developing that programming and ways of targeting those solid tumors. Those are things that we would see coming out probably in the 2026 timeframe.
Well, great. So thank you both for being our guests. And, we are looking together with helping you guys build this amazing future ahead of us.
Likewise.
Thank you so much. And yeah, we're very excited to see what these technologies bring for patients. So please let us know how we can help and look forward to the journey.